Welcome to Game Day 716, where every day is game day in Erie County, Niagara County, Chautauqua County,
Western New York.
Western New York. That's a better way to say it. So here we are. Noah, Todd, Game Day CJ. He is still, part of the team, so his graduation sticks for now. No, not for now, forever. So
thank you.
Mom's here. All right. Mom's here, grandma's here. We're good to roll. So it's been a very busy sports week, and we are going to fly through a lot of topics. So we think that a lot of people will like today's show because, we bring our fantastic takes to fantastic topics, and we're going to talk Bills, football, Bills.
Sprinkle in some Sabres.
We're going to talk about how the Sabres exist.
Sprinkle it in.
We'll sprinkle it in. And how today I'm going to start with today being National Girls and Women's Day in Sports. So that's that. Shout out to the Nebraska Cornhuskers women's volleyball team.
Woo!
That's all women's athletics.
And all women's athletics and women's in sports. Who's your favorite female sportscaster?
Why would you do that?
I mean, not to be cliche, but I really do like Doris Burke. What?
Could you hear Noah or no?
Yep.
Oh, you could? Okay.
Yeah.
How about yours?
Ears.
The only reason I said that was because I couldn't think of any at first when you first said it, but then I thought of a few. Aaron Andrews.
That's a good one. I like Robin Roberts when she was doing it. Does that count? Cheryl Miller's really good too.
Mina Kimes.
Oh,
okay.
I don't know if she counts as a sportscaster.
Yes, she does.
But
and we can get into this because that was going to be one of my topics. But we'll get into the Mina Kimes, Jeff Garcia discussion.
I also like
next week. And
what's her face from the Boston Globe, who's always on?
Oh, yeah, the blonde or the one that's
she's older.
Yep.
Oh, Jackie McMullen.
Yes. Yeah, she's great. She's
good. Sarah Spain.
Yep.
Yes.
They're all really great.
I'm like,
Mike's here, so
things are a little different today. I'm in control.
Noah's in control because the camera's near you.
Yeah,
is that why? So they say to angle the camera instead of having it directly at you. So we're continuing to make it,
best face forward.
Yeah. So here we go. Tom Brady retired, officially retired. How are we feeling? Personally, I feel good and bad. He said he was going to go to 45. He went to 44.
Does this make you feel old?
It does not make me feel old.
Man, okay.
Brady came in right when I started to get season tickets for the Bills. So he came in again right when.
Okay, it makes sense why you got rid of them then.
Right when Bledsoe got traded here, and there was the parade for him down, the throughway and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, how naive we were.
Yeah. And then there were 25 quarterbacks after that. But Bledsoe did have a really good first season. And the Bills were really good. But how are you feeling about the Brady retirement? Are you like, goodbye, so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, adieu?
I mean, yeah. I mean, watching as the sports fan, I'm like, thank God you're gone. As the sports bettor, I'm like, damn it.
Speaking of sports betting, I won $234 on FanDuel.
Nice.
Betting on hoops.
Yeah. It's fun.
It is fun.
It makes it so I was telling you before the show, I was watching college basketball over the weekend. It was fun. Other fun part of it was I also
had
won
money
a little
on
bit
it?
too. So some of them I got
I'm
to
being
watch.
very,
It was like,
very careful.
Yeah.
I'm being very careful about what bets I go in that kind of thing. I'm not just all in on everything. So,
No.
CJ Brady retirement. How are you feeling?
Was he waiting on the 15 million? Is that why
No, because he retired before Friday.
Oh, so that's when it was supposed to kick in, was Friday?
That was when it was supposed to kick in, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I thought that was the reason.
I think all that stuff just happened because he didn't get to release it.
Oh yeah. So he just wanted to make people look stupid or whatever, kind of.
Yeah. How do we feel about him not talking about the Patriots at all?
I think it's
no
fun.
Robert Kraft, no fans.
Well, he thanked the fans today, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. So he made
so
up
I'm
for
pretty
the
sure.
fans piece.
Yeah. So I think he did a Tampa centric one, and I think that a lot of the thank yous for Kraft and that are going to be when he does the going back to the New England. Because I had heard he was going to go back there for some sort of parade or something like.
He's going to sign a 1-day contract to retire as a Patriot,
and then he'll have an announcement, and then he'll be able to thank them then.
Okay.
And so I'm pretty sure that's the thing he was going with. I just kind of feel how Noah felt, not about like the betting per se, but I have like two different, I'm kind of pulled both directions with it. Like part of me feels very happy that he's gone and that I don't have to worry about him anymore, and that the Bills losing to him, or just the gray cloud he has been over the Bills for the past 20 years, 20 some years. And but then at the same time, he is so good for the sport and, brings so much to the sport. And he's just been just huge as far as how many Super Bowls he's got and just how big of a face he is when it comes to NFL football. I guarantee there's only a couple people that you could go to a different country and say someone's name like that, Tom Brady, and I'm sure most people would know who he is, whereas that doesn't hold true for everyone in the NFL. So he was definitely a figure for the NFL. So that's kind of where I'm torn between is, his legacy. He's a great quarterback. I respect him for that. But at the same time, I am happy that he is not here.
That's fair. Good. Very good points. So let's talk about the final scores. The final scores from the AFC and NFC championship game and how we felt about him. So the Rams beat San Francisco 20-17. Hard fought game. What did you think about it? I don't know how I feel
in Rams defense. Here's the way I'll describe that game. It was mediocre offenses, but they're not, but they are at the same time somehow.
But their defenses are so good that it made the offenses look mediocre on both ends. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but was the San Francisco defense that good?
Yeah.
I mean, their line is always just. And
once they moved Armstead inside and put Ebukam,
I just felt like it was just like a lot of the offenses, both offenses just failing to do anything.
Well, that's a Garoppolo thing, right?
Yeah, he always has that one ball overthrown that's could have been a touchdown that will cost them the game.
Yeah,
yeah,
or the interception. Yeah.
The Tart missed interception was huge.
Yeah.
For LA, I honestly when San Fran went up by a touchdown, I think maybe 8 minutes left in the game. I'm not sure exactly, but they went up by a touchdown, and I thought that was it. I thought that LA wasn't going to be able to score again or keep up. And I mean, they won convincingly. San Fran had a chance with the ball at the end of the game, and LA stepped up. Usually in that situation, you're used to the offense scoring, right? And I think that we lose how big of an impact defenses are, but in that situation, that defense won them the game. You know what I mean? Because all they needed was a field goal. How often do we see teams with down by a field goal get that field goal, with 2-3 minutes left, whatever. That usually happens. So when that doesn't happen, you sit there and say, oh, it's the offense, but you have to also credit to obviously the defense.
Definitely. Aaron Donald's a wrecking machine. Jalen Ramsey played out of his mind, I think. And Matthew Stafford stepped up, in my opinion, in the end. I mean, do you think it's his year, Stafford?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think it was a great trade then if they win the Super Bowl. I mean,
yeah.
people were ripping on them for that trade, and I love the trade from day one.
I love Odell and what he's done there. You know what I mean? Like, I just love that he's done so well there. It's just,
especially when he was supposed to be the complimentary receiver, and then Robert Woods goes down the day they sign him.
I just don't see how the Cincy corners keep up with
Eli Apple.
Like, yeah, those to keep up with Beckham or Higbee or Cup. Like,
Cup just gets open.
Yeah.
I mean, there was that one TD where Stafford just flinged it, and he was somehow open in the middle of 4 guys because he just ran through them.
Yep.
And then just sat there in the zone. Like, it's ridiculous. He's ridiculous.
Yeah, he has a very I always go back to this, but he's a very Antonio Brown in his prime. Like, if you watch Brown, he was one of the only players. Now Cup I've been watching more, and he's been doing similar things where if it's a zone, he can turn his back to the defenders and he can know exactly where those guys are. So when he catches the ball, he can make his break, and it's just beautiful to watch. His understanding of the field, of players, of where they are, all that stuff.
It's like he has eyes in the back of his head.
Eyes in the back of his head. That's right. He does, though. Him and Stafford have ridiculous chemistry. And
after one season,
he was targeted 191 times and had almost 2,000 yards receiving, which is absolutely ridiculous in today's game, even when it's a pass-happy game. And he had 145 receptions, which is 20 something more than than Debo, who was next. Devontae Adams, who was next. Speaking of, don't flip yet. The Washington football team is no more. They have released their name as the Washington Commanders. They're still using the football team colors. The crimson red and the yellow and that kind of thing. How are we feeling about the Commanders name? What are we thinking?
It's fine. We'll get to call them the commies, but
the commies,
red,
too. Yeah, I suppose
in DC.
I suppose I personally would have liked Admirals better. Yeah. I think that actually sounds like a real team name, like than Commanders, which sounds like what you were talking about a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this, where it's like you make up the team in the video games, and like Commanders is one of the options in Madden.
Exactly.
Well, so is Admirals. So
that's what I'm saying, though. It seems easy. Like, it just seems like there wasn't that much thought put into it. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's what it comes off like to me.
Like, did they not have a vote for this?
They did.
Oh, I'm sure.
So then I think they
what
ignored
happened
it.
to that vote? Were they just like, yeah?
People wanted the Hogs, and I think they were like, no. I think that's why. And so they were just like,
then just pick the next one.
They were just like, we're not gonna unless the next one was the Commanders. It could have been.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure there was a ton of research and
development.
And well, yeah, they took 2 years.
Yeah,
I would hope,
Yeah.
Cincy KC.
Cincy KC.
Admirals better.
Yeah, I think the Admirals would have been the winner. Yeah. So 13 seconds, the revenge, right? It was kind of a revenge game for the Bills, right? So what I'm talking about, obviously, or not obviously to most of our viewers, but what I'm talking about is that Patrick Mahomes threw an interception in overtime, 13 seconds into overtime, as Kansas City made fun of Buffalo. Yes, they also donated all the money to Children's Hospital.
Yeah, it's fine.
But they had their little digs at Buffalo over and over again about the 13 seconds.
Did you see that when the Giants, speaking of people donating to O'Shea's, did you see that when the Giants hired Dable, one of the guys who's a Giants fans for Barstool organized like an extra $200K of people to donate because they donated I think in 17s. They either did 8 for Daniel Jones or they did 17 for Josh. I don't remember, but they gave us that for hiring Dable. And they donated.
That's cool. Okay, to piggyback off that, how do we feel about fan bases just donating?
Go ahead, do it. I don't care.
In these kind of, I mean, I think they're kind of cool ways.
I don't care. Like that $13 thing's like, okay.
You're
like,
benefiting
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
You're making fun of us, but yeah, thanks. We're gonna have like the best child care wing.
Right.
Like we're gonna be able to buy the same thing that the military buys with their budget.
Right.
I think the budgets are gonna be similar, honestly, by the time people are done donating to it.
Right. Maybe we should get another charity than just O'Shea's Children's Hospital. But
I mean, there are. But
we could do Roswell. I mean, there's a lot we could do, but
well, there are even a lot for the Bills too. Everybody just donates.
Yeah, everyone has one
because it's Josh.
So, what do you think about that, CJ? Like, how do you feel about? I guess it's a dumb question in the end. How do you feel about people donating money to charities? But
I don't know. I mean, I guess like I've always been of the like last week when we had this conversation about the 13. And how I guess some Bills fans took slight in it, right? So like some people felt like, oh, it's a backhanded thing where they're kind of like putting us down. But in my opinion, anything that goes towards like charities, hospitals, whatever, I don't care why they do it. I don't care why they say they do it, why they tell themselves they do it. That doesn't matter to me. As long as they do it, you know, that's what's important to me. That's what I'm happy about. But at the same time, I don't know. I get it. Like, I think it's a little bit. I don't know. I don't know how. I can't describe it in a way that I would be comfortable and feel like I wouldn't sound like an idiot. So it's hard for me to say the opposite of that. You know.
Yeah. No, I get it. I see what you're saying. So, moving on. One of the things that I kind of noticed when looking at Bill's stats for the year is that a lot of players had sort of underrated quiet seasons that really weren't noticed by the league. And the first one I want to bring up is Stephon Diggs. So in Buffalo, we kind of ripped Diggs over and over again for not having productive games and that kind of thing. But Diggs had productive games. He was very where is it now? Okay, so Diggs had over 100 he had 103 receptions. He had 1,225 receiving yards. His yards per reception was 11.9. And he had 10 touchdowns. I mean, how can we sit there and say it was a down year for Diggs?
How many yards did he have?
He had 1,200 yards.
It's more than
I
he had
guess
last year.
Just because, is it really?
He had 1,600 last year in the league. Yeah.
Oh no! So you said he had 12 this year, 16 last year?
Oh yeah, no, that I'm
okay.
Never mind.
No, you're fine. But that's the point, right? Is that he didn't do as well as the year before. So to a novice person who doesn't really understand wide receiver statistics and know what the difference is between a good season and a bad season, would look at that and say, oh, well, he was down from last year, so it's worse, you know?
Right. And then the comeback to that would, well, we can't expect him to lead the league every single season.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, I think.
And the other comeback is, you know, the elevation of Gabriel Davis, that teams were doubling Diggs more this year. I mean, there's so many
He
different
still
things.
put up 1,200 yards. I mean, if he can put up 1,200 yards consistently with Josh, like
Right.
if 1,200 yards,
This is low.
I would say 1,000 to 1,200. If that's the high point or
The
the
mean.
median, the mean, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And then he goes a little bit above that, a little bit below that, maybe every once in a while. And
I mean, Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards every single season he's been in the NFL.
Yeah, well, we could have drafted him, but we drafted. Never mind.
No, I'm just saying, like, if we get something similar to that with Diggs, where he has consistent yardage, okay.
Yeah.
And if 1,200 yards is it, then okay.
I think Diggs is a little bit more rounded, a little bit more than Evans is, though, to be honest. As far as route running, more rounded as compared to Evans, like a more well-rounded.
Oh yeah. I think you said Adams, and I was like, what?
Evans.
Yeah. So I was very surprised, like I said, when I looked at his points when I looked at his stats and was just surprised. Next player who I was impressed with, who got a lot of press going down, the last couple games of the season, was Devin Singletary. When I looked at his yards, he only ended up with only, but in the league where Josh Allen's your quarterback, Singletary had 870 yards rushing, and 7 touchdowns, along with 40 receptions, which I don't think anyone really recognized at any point that he was getting receptions.
I mean, we did.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've seen it, but like for most part, you didn't realize how much of an impact it had on the offense, right?
Right.
I think moving forward, barring like a late round or a early round, like early first round slide, early second round slide of like a really high end running back, I think that next year is going to be his year, and you got to give him that opportunity to take it for the whole year. I think what we saw towards the end just made us realize that we should have done that earlier. And so I think because of that they'll start to continue the same thing next year, barring some crazy draft pick that of an amazing player or whatever that would be better than him. But
I think they should trade their first round pick for a defensive end.
We can talk about that. Not today, though.
Not today. Yep.
So the other thing that I noticed about Singletary was his 870 yards, ranked 19th in the league. But he did it. All of the 18 players who were above him had way more carries, at least 20 more carries than he did.
Wow.
That's what I thought. I was like, wow, that's really impressive, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, I mean, these guys really had,
30 plus touches, whatever. 20,
yeah,
30
but Singletary only had 188 touches, and everyone else was over 200. And even the guys behind him were over 200. The only guy behind him was Leonard Fournette, and AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. I'm combining because I feel like it, and I want to make my point. So, so they had a ton of touches, but and Miles Sanders,
when he was healthy,
played really well. He averaged 5.5 per carry. Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. That's right up there with Jonathan Taylor. So, and Nick Chubb.
I wonder if we could get a little bit more perspective as far as like how well he did down the stretch compared to how he did in the first half of the season, and how much that helped the offense. Because you could see it, you could see that us running the ball and us giving one guy a lot of those looks like seemed to help his confidence and seemed to make him run the ball harder, and and in turn it made the offense more dynamic. And I'd be interested to see when, because I remember early in the season they were more splitting carries between a couple guys, and for the last 6 games or so is when they really started to dial Singletary up more by himself.
Yeah, definitely. And in the playoffs too, it
Yeah.
was almost all Singletary.
Yeah.
So that was another sort of under the radar thing that wasn't completely under the radar. But another one to me was Josh. As much press as he got, I still think he didn't get the praise that he deserved, maybe. Or maybe he didn't deserve as much. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on Josh.
You're wrong on Josh.
I'm wrong on Josh.
You're wrong on Josh.
I can be wrong.
Okay.
I'm okay with accepting being wrong.
I think you're wrong on Knox too.
Tell me why I'm wrong on Knox.
Because everybody noticed how well he was doing, though.
Well, we made a T-shirt.
Yeah, but not just us.
Well, here's the thing about Knox. Okay, Knox did not do well in receptions or yardage. He had under 500 yards and like 40 something receptions.
But his yards per reception was incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was one part. And then the other part was he led the league in touchdowns for tight ends.
Wow.
He had 9 touchdowns. So that's where I think the under the radar part comes in, was that he was one of Josh's blankets, I guess, or whatever you would say there, as far as being in the red zone and feeling comfortable with players. And I think we're going to see that with Davis next year, right? We're probably going to see that and see Josh get comfortable with Davis, but that's I really felt like Knox was under the radar. I know you disagree, and that's fine, but I think you're wrong on that one. You can think I'm wrong on Allen.
Right.
And where do you sit on both of those, CJ?
The Josh aspect of it, I think he had a lot of high expectations coming into this season. And as a result of that, I feel like he was unjustly, like, people put things on him that weren't necessarily his fault. So I kind of understand where you're saying as far as like, let me think of how to put it. So okay. So if he comes into this season and they have all these expectations, right? And they're expecting him to do certain things, and I would say that we could all agree that in the beginning half of the season he hadn't lived up to that, right? Or are we not on that page? Okay.
I think I'm there. Are you there?
Yeah, he didn't live up to it in terms of his play, but like his numbers were still there, which was
no, I agree. I'm not saying my view. I'm saying
no, I know
general consensus, right? So yeah, okay. Yeah. And then so I could see it both ways. I could see where he was kind of underrated, and kind of people, like, after that first half of the season kind of cast him out, and then he really popped for the last 8 games or whatever. So I could get behind that. The Knox thing, I kind of have a harder time with Knox than I do Josh, just because I think Knox was everything that we wanted him to be this year. You know what I mean? And so I don't know, being a Bills fan, right? It's hard to look at it from an outsider's perspective to see if, okay, did anybody really even notice or feel the same way that we did? Someone that's not a Bills fan, did they say, oh, well, that Dawson Knox up in Buffalo is really doing his thing, Right. That's a good question. But to me, he definitely played a lot better than he had the past couple of years. And no, obviously that comes with tight ends and growing more comfortable with the offense. We know that's a slow developing position as it is.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure he probably doesn't get the recognition he deserves as far as when you say he's the number 1 touchdown scorer in the NFL. I'm sure nobody knows that. So in that case, I would say, yeah, he doesn't get the credit he deserves, probably.
Yeah, he tied with Kelsey. And I mean, Kelsey doubled the amount of yardage and doubled the amount of receptions, but he tied with Kelsey. And when you think about how many different ways Kansas City used Kelsey,
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? With those shovel
fullback.
passes
Yep,
and,
yep.
All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing I think, where Knox was more of like your standard tight end, in that kind of thing. And the other thing was he played all 17 games when the Bills didn't have any kind of backup tight end, which was critical for the Bills.
Yeah.
In that kind of thing. And I think longevity is not the word. But being able to not get injured is actually something that's important to take into account.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're
well, I got breaking news.
Let me go back to Josh for 1 second before we hit breaking news. Let me go back to Josh, because the thing about Josh was that while he didn't have the passing yards, what he did have was the rushing yards to make up for it. Right? This was his highest rushing season so far. And I think we've talked about Josh running and that kind of thing. I think they're gonna run him again next season.
Yeah.
I think I'm hoping it, and we've talked about this and talked about this a couple times, but I think they're gonna run him again next season. In the ways that we've already talked about. So I'm not gonna go down a
You don't think
hole.
Dorsey favors him more? Like would favor his longevity more than Dable would?
I think he does. I think Josh and Dorsey probably have more tight knit, probably a more tight knit connection than Dable and Josh had. And I think Dable wanted it seemed like by the end that Dable wanted a balanced offense. We don't know if that came from Dable. We don't know if that came from McDermott, but Dable was the passing game coordinator, right? So he's going to go in there and
Dorsey
was the passing game coordinator. So he's going to go in there with passing on his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bills just hired Joe Brady to be their quarterback coach, and they beat out we know they beat out the Bears, who offered him a bunch of money to mentor Justin Fields to be their quarterback coach. And that's a fantastic hire when you get someone, it's another Carolina connection, but when you get someone who was an offensive coordinator to come in and be that guy who, if Dorsey leaves, Dorsey may be a 1 year and out kind of guy, just depending on how the offense goes. So that's the kind of thing where maybe you can just elevate Brady in the same kind of way. And the Bills continue to build, next man up kind of things. Noah, to take us to breaking news.
Jim Harbaugh has called Michigan to inform the school that despite interviewing with the Vikings today, he will be returning to school for the 2022 season.
Ooh,
Sources tell ESPN Michigan was, in the words of one source, elated to get Harbaugh's decision.
Well, of course they were.
Harbaugh then told Ward Manuel that this would not be a reoccurring issue and he would stay at Michigan as long as it wants him.
Wow.
Cool. Good for them. Ward Manuel used to be the AD at UB during the Turner Gill era.
That was a good era.
That was a good era for UB. Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah. So the basic gist is Harbaugh staying at Michigan. He didn't like the Minnesota.
No, he's still interviewing with them.
He's still interviewing with Minnesota, but told Michigan he's staying.
Yeah.
Well, that's got to be just because Minnesota's whining and dining him, right? And he wants a free steak or something.
It doesn't make much sense.
He told,
That's really strange. Yeah. Watch him change course. He's gonna pull a McDaniels.
Yeah, he said despite interviewing. No, he interviewed with the Vikings today.
Okay.
Yeah, today.
So he interviewed, and they said thanks for.
Oh yeah, you're not ready for the NFL yet.
I guess. I don't know.
Oh, you still think air raid works? Oh.
Oh, he was a ground and pound guy.
Yeah, no.
What's next? Oh, were there other guys you wanted to add to quiet production? Anyone else who you could think of? I was gonna do defense, and then I was just like, eh. But anyone who we could talk about Levi probably all day, but you know, anyone else who really stuck out? I mean, Poyer and Hyde were expected to do what they did.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, Milano had another just solid year.
Till the playoffs came around.
Yeah, well, whatever. Morse.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. Mitch Morse.
Yeah.
He had a really great season. He did. Really? Gilliam.
They like him. I don't know. They use him.
Yeah.
He did some blocking.
At one point.
That's what we'll go with.
He caught a pass too.
Yeah.
That's what we'll go with. Reggie Gilliam. He did some blocking. That's gonna go on his tombstone.
He's a fullback. I mean, not that far out of the realm.
So that's that.
We all moved. Like
we all moved. The earth shook. Oh no, it's okay. What's next? Oh, so in the same vein of underappreciated players, Elijah Mitchell versus Najee Harris, I thought was a very interesting comparison to compare the two. When I was just looking at stats for players throughout the season, because while Harris had 370 carries and 1,200 yards, Mitchell had not that many, but he was very, very productive for San Francisco. And he was out for like 4 games or something as well. So his yardage is a little off. There he is. So he had 963 yards on 207 carries. So to me, I don't know. Is there value in drafting drafting a running back in the first round when you can get Eli Mitchell in the 6th? I mean, I know it's a longer shot to get a guy like Mitchell, but Gainwell was taken in the 4th.
I think just when like I mean, I think there's a chance that if Pittsburgh got a better offensive line, that Harris could be either a carbon copy of Derrick Henry or possibly even better, and then just carry that Pittsburgh offense.
I think right now the highest I would compare Harris to would be Fournette, maybe.
And that's after one season, which is pretty impressive. I mean,
yeah. I'm not saying it in a bad way. I'm just saying, I mean, Harris in the game against Buffalo was averaging 2.2 yards per carry or something.
Yeah.
But he ended the season averaging Where did they go? It was one of the lower numbers,
which I think has to do with Pittsburgh's offensive line. I mean, I don't know. I think when you know your guy and you know that he can be good, I mean, you just draft him when you want to draft him.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're still going to have those prolific guys, the Harrises, the Henrys, the Taylors, stuff like that, where you're going to hit on those.
Yeah.
And those guys are going to go high, just because of what their intangibles, what they bring to the team, and then you're going to have the guys like the Mitchells. And I love that Mitchell story. I love that he beat out Trey Sermon, who was drafted 4 rounds earlier, 4 or 5 rounds earlier than him. And I just think it's a great story. And, it just goes to show that, like you said, anybody can, in the 6th, you can get a guy like that. It's incredible.
Yeah. I think it's pretty cool. So I think the Bills should just keep drafting quarterbacks and running backs in the 5th and 6th round. That's seriously what I think. So someone put something out. Oh, you put it out, didn't you? About Damian Wilkes?
Yeah, I did. I put it in the group chat.
In the group chat, in our group chat, about if Damian
Malik
Wilkes. Who's Damian Wilkes? Okay.
I don't know.
I think he works for the Bills, maybe.
Malik Willis.
If Malik Willis is available,
quarterback from Liberty,
at the end of the 1st round, do you draft a quarterback to be Josh's backup?
I think you do. Why not?
Because they don't think you want to mess with Josh's head.
That won't mess with Josh's head. You're not bringing in this guy to be the starter. This is like the Jake Fromm thing from a couple years ago.
Except Jake Fromm was a 4th round pick, where Willis but this was also a 1st round pick. And the Bills have a lot of holes to fill.
I mean, yeah, that would be the only thing. I mean, if there's an offensive lineman that's
or a defensive tackle, right, or a cornerback.
Right. I mean, if one of the top guys happens to slip to you and you go, oh, I want to draft a quarterback instead, then yeah, that's an issue. But I mean, if he's the best player available, I mean, why not? You're going to shore up the quarterback position. None of these guys are expected to be superstars coming out of the draft this year. So, I mean, I don't think Malik Willis is going to be the next Lamar Jackson. You bring him in here, and we've talked about this. We've talked about bringing back Trubisky to shore up the backup quarterback position.
Well, I think they and that's, I guess, where I'm at. If they can bring Trubisky back,
then you don't need to.
That's what they should do.
Right. Then you don't need to. But if you don't, then why not? If he's the best player on the board available, like all the linemen, whatever, you would be picking too high for some guys you feel in your
trade back.
If that's what they want to do. But I mean, if the value isn't there, if everything just happens to falls right and he's there, why not? Yeah, none of these guys are expected to be superstars. I mean, that would be the thing.
I don't know. I kind of like Kenny Pickett, but
right, he's the one that everybody says is the most NFL ready.
Right. So, but so was Josh Rosen. So,
well, exactly.
So let's talk coaching changes and the Bills. The beginning of the Bills' exodus has started. With Brian Dable going to the Giants and taking Bobby Johnson, the offensive line coach, and taking Shea Tierney, the backup quarterback coach, since they didn't get Dable.
Assistant.
He was assistant quarterback coach, whatever you want to call him. But so they grabbed Tierney, grab Bobby Johnson. We think they're probably going to grab some more, probably on the defensive side, maybe. But it depends on what he does with defense. If he brings in a guy who's just going to own the defense, then that guy has all his connections, right?
I think the only reason he brought Bobby Johnson over is because he thought he was going to get Dorsey. I think the Giants didn't think we would match their offer. for Dorsey, and I think Dable was really confident he would get him. But I think he just grabbed Tierney out of spite. And then also because we signed Joe Brady. So I think Tierney was like, oh, well, if you're not going to make me the QB coach, then I'm going to go be the QB coach somewhere else.
Well, Tierney was ready. I mean, again, he was next man up, right?
So then they brought in Joe Brady and then
see you later.
Yeah.
So we don't know which guys' contracts are up when it comes to players or when it comes to coaches. Well, players we know, but coaches we don't completely know. So the anti-exodus is Joe Brady and Ken Dorsey at this point. I'm very excited about both of these hires. And you know, as we talked about earlier, Dorsey was the passing game coordinator, as well as the quarterback coach. We know he has a tight relationship with Allen. He's going to be careful with Allen. He's not going to throw him in a position to,
get hurt,
right. Or do anything super dangerous. And Joe Brady is just another offensive mind who they can bring in and bounce ideas off of, and exactly who the Bills were talking about and fans have been talking about as far as bringing in people from the outside with experience who they can bounce ideas off of, right? And have a new perspective. So, CJ, what do you think of these hires of Brady and Dorsey?
I guess the Brady one is kind of self-explanatory with the connection to the Carolina. I don't know how that connection really fits offensively, but I guess we'll find out. And then keeping Dorsey, I think, was huge. I think that was a major part of the consistency moving forward, where Dorsey can kind of show it's Brady, right? Is the guy's last name? Yeah. Where Dorsey can, if Brady I like the idea that Dorsey would outweigh Brady in decision making and play calling and stuff like that.
Right.
Because I not that I dislike Brady that much. It's just I prefer what we've been doing to stay a little bit more consistent and to build off of what we've been doing. I don't want to scratch anything. I don't want to go back to the drawing board. We do know what success is and how we can attain that success by doing what we need to do on the field. And I just think that having Dorsey in charge of that will mold Brady into whatever we really need him to be. And I think, we'll find out as the years come, but I think that Brady will end up in a better position in the future because of where he is now. And I know that sounded a little confusing, but what I mean by that is I think Brady will end up going back to OC or something like that in the future because of what Josh will do for him, what Dorsey will do for him, stuff like that.
Yeah, I that's a very good observation, I think, and a good summary on that. You have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I basically agree with what CJ said. It's a good hire.
What CJ said. That's cool. Coaching carousel so far, the Bears have hired Eberflus from the Indy. Broncos have hired Matt Hackett from Green Bay, formerly Bills. Giants have hired Brian Dable, and everything else is open. So that leaves the Vikings, Saints, Dolphins, and Jaguars.
I am blown away by the Hackett one because there's not many former offensive coordinators of the Bills that go on to get head coaching positions, as far as I can remember.
Chan Gailey.
He was an offensive coordinator that turned to head coach.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was so after us, right? Is what I more think of, like people that were our offensive coordinator that we got rid of turned
Yeah.
into it, which is just very
Yeah,
rare.
Chan Gailey was oh no, Gailey was our head coach though.
Right. So it's the opposite. No, I get what I understand why you said that, but I'm just so
because I was thinking Marone too, but that's not true.
but
no,
yeah, so that's a different situation also. And
coordinator. He's saying.
yeah, so I think that Hackett one is very interesting because it brings me back to that time of Bill's history, right? And you really question what he could have done with a better roster. And obviously the roster is not on him whatsoever. It's on for the most part, head coaches, GMs, stuff like that. And you build the roster for 3-4 years, and then he was at a certain point. And I just felt like our roster, don't get me wrong, was that Stevie Johnson,
I believe
Fitzpatrick
it
era?
was.
Okay. Yeah.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
okay.
they had Bob.
Okay. So to me, it's interesting to think of what he could have done given a Green Bay's caliber offense. You know what I mean? And now that he got that, and it's interesting because again, you can make the argument that it was Rodgers that did it for him, right? Or was it him? You know what I mean? And it's tough, right? But I just think it's interesting to think about what we
Well,
could
and the
have
other
had.
question is, was it LaFleur? Right.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
LaFleur has the best winning percentage of any coach ever to start their career.
Well, I think there's also a difference between being offensive coordinator for Aaron Rodgers and that offense.
I agree.
And offensive coordinator for Jeff Toole and good wide receivers.
Jeff Toole when he was here.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes. No, that's the both sides of the coin there, right? You know what I mean? Like that's the argument for him and that's the argument against him. I just think it'd be interesting to see, if he's really this guru or the way they made him out to be, at least the way Denver picked him up so fast, they made it seem like they didn't want him to have an opportunity to see what else was out there kind of. They had their guy and they wanted him. And we'll find out if that was the right call, but I just think, clearly he's done well in the past couple of years, with Rodgers going MVP caliber, probably win it 2 years in a row, to be honest.
I mean, if Marone stayed, you could really have like an alternate universe of Bills here. Because like there's a possibility, like we know what Marone is as a coach because he went on to the Jags and was basically the same, mediocre. But if Marone stayed, let's say, he stays the course, he stays mediocre, there's a chance Nathaniel Hackett could be our head coach.
Right.
It'd still be our head coach.
So that's what I'm saying. That's what's interesting to me is that given a better roster, and obviously the roster had a lot to do with, in my opinion, limiting what he could do as an offense, right? So it's tough, right? Because did he get fired because of his own mistakes, or did he get fired because of the roster wasn't ready to compete at that level that they needed him to?
Well, they left together, didn't they?
Hackett
and Marone, didn't they leave together?
Wasn't Hackett under Gailey?
Yeah, I think so.
No, I thought Hackett was with Marone because then he left when Marone was like, "Oh, I'm using the out to go to the Jags," and Hackett was like, "Oh, I'm going to follow with you and be your offense coordinator."
Okay, that sounds somewhat familiar.
But I mean, you're still right. Like the alternate history that could have been.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting to think about.
Would Doug Whaley still be our general manager because like they accidentally found lightning in a bottle
with him? Yeah, interesting. I just thought, what would be, right? You know what I mean? If just thought it was interesting.
No,
and just you don't have that with any other coaches or any other OCs. You know what I mean? Like that we've had in the past. Like that's never been the case where they go on to be an offensive coordinator or a head coach.
Right.
Rex Ryan retired.
Mike Mularkey went on to whatever.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what happens with Dable.
Yeah. So that's our test right there, right? To see that'll be like one of the only guys that has gone onto a head coaching position.
Well, isn't that technically the start of McDermott's coaching tree?
But it's actually Andy Reid's coaching tree.
Yeah. And that is incredible. Like
I mean, people still, there's the Bill Walsh coaching tree, but we're not,
which Andy Reid is part of.
Right. So Andy Reid has his own coaching tree.
Yeah. but I think you have to get older.
Oh well, but I mean, it's a start.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah. So last coaching discussion. What do we think about McDaniels to the Raiders?
Okay.
McDaniels went to the Raiders. Is that how you feel?
I mean, their offense wasn't good. It was middling. They were saved by their defense. I don't know.
You think McDaniels will improve the offense, CJ?
I
mean, Derek Carr was pretty good this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll be better.
I
than
have like
Gruden,
mixed feelings about McDaniels. Me personally, I didn't feel like this was the year that he deserved to get that job. I felt like he earned it other years, and so I was a little surprised that they like gave him the job this year when offensively, outside of quarterbacks coach, I mean, Jones did well, but like I didn't see much on the offensive side that made me. But I guess you look at the resume, right? So it's never just 1 year. You know what I mean? If he was willing to leave, this year after everything he's done there, all the championships, there was definitely a team that wanted him.
Do you think he was just like, F it, I'm done waiting?
Right? It has to be, because I read somewhere two years ago that Belichick had come to him and told him, this is yours, a year or 2 years or whatever. And something's changed something has changed since the Indy debacle, right? Where he made his decision and then went back on it, because clearly he had a conversation with Belichick there. Where he, was told, oh, no, this will be yours in a few years. And now we're a few years later, and that clearly hasn't happened, and it doesn't seem like Bill's going anywhere. So it has to be.
Yep. Yeah. So let's move on to the big topic of the week. And it is the Rooney Rule. So the Rooney Rule exists to advance
minorities.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of it. I couldn't think of the right word. To advance minority hiring in the NFL. Brian Flores, who was fired from Miami for winning, allegedly he was fired for winning. All of these right now are allegations, but Brian Flores was fired from the Miami Dolphins, and he has come out with claims that he was offered $100,000 per game to lose by Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross, so they could get a better draft pick. Now, in that season, it was the 2019 season, and so that would have been the year they took Waddle or Tua.
Well, Waddle was a rookie this year,
so it would have been the year they took Tua.
Yeah, or the year they were planning to take Tua. No, that had to be the year they were taking Tua.
Yeah.
Because they wanted...
It would have been the 2020 draft.
They wanted whoever was selected first overall at quarterback, where they were fifth for that draft.
Well, in the end, they took Tua. They got who they wanted.
Trying to think. It's the same... No, it was. It must have been Lawrence.
No, Lawrence was a rookie this year.
Okay, so it was.
What he's saying though is there was another guy in the draft that they wanted. I think
they wanted the first overall pick.
Yeah. I remember. I don't remember who that was.
Burrow. Oh my God.
Yeah,
they wanted to take Joe Burrow.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the year they took Tua.
Yeah.
Okay, so they still took a quarterback. Flores, we know Flores left because he didn't like Tua.
Yeah.
And obviously if the rumors are true, there's clear dissonance between ownership and Flores. I don't know that ownership expected this to get out.
No. I don't think Giants ownership expected that to get out.
Right. So the other part of this becomes the Giants and Bill Belichick, right? Bill Belichick
Screwing over the Giants one more time.
screwing over the Giants one more time. Yeah. Even though Giants screwed him over twice. So, but Belichick texted Brian Flores instead of Brian Dable, saying, "Hey, way to go! Good job getting the job with the Giants." And Flores said, "I haven't even interviewed with the Giants yet. Are you sure you're texting the right person?" And Belichick said, "I screwed up. I was trying to text Brian Dable."
Do you know it's because he has them both as Brian in his phone?
He has them both as Brian?
Yeah.
Not Brian F and Brian D?
Nope, he just has them both as Brian.
Maybe he should fix that. So that's where the NFL is at. And then Hugh Jackson came in, who is a former coach for the Cleveland Browns. And yeah, no, I was thinking baseball for a second. And they're the what, Commanders? No, that's what Washington just became. Guardians of the Cleveland. And so Hugh Jackson came in and said that Cleveland did the same thing to him. He has since clarified that and said, well, not exactly. It was that they made overtones that they're rebuilding. And that they wanted me to be the coach to rebuild, but that they didn't have a good culture. Right. And he talked about it. And so Hugh Jackson basically made himself irrelevant by making and backtracking on his statements. But the Brian Flores, he has a second set of texts, or he has proof or a witness or
stuff from Miami
something
ownership
that
talks about it specifically.
From Miami ownership that talks about it specifically, sure. And so this all circles back to Flores now saying that the Rooney Rule, which again is a rule in place that says whenever you're hiring a head coach, you have to interview a minority, including in your coaching search.
I think it's any position.
Well, let's go with head coach because I'm not entirely sure. So unless you want to look it up, you feel free. So he said that the Rooney Rule is basically a token rule, and that it no longer exists to help minorities, but it really just is right. He didn't say token, but
show.
It's a show. Yeah, that's what he said.
Because he also stated the Broncos, saying that 5 executives, and among them being like their GM at the time and John Elway and like a bunch of other Denver guys, showed up to the interview with him in 2017 when they hired Fangio, and they were like hungover and completely disheveled and like talked to him for like an hour and a half, and then we're like, thanks, bye.
Right. So
Rooney Rule is everybody for head coaching and football operations opportunities and senior manager positions.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's I think it's like head coach, offensive coordinators, and then like.
So here's a question. Here's an interesting question. Let's say that, right, the Bills have next man up, and like even in their front office, right? So when Shane left, when who's the guy who left for Carolina 2 years ago? Dan Morgan.
Yeah.
When they left, they now have their director of I have to look it up. Their director of player personnel is a minority, and they're saying that he's going to become assistant GM. Now, can they just promote him without interviewing anyone else?
I think if he's under contract, I think as long as the promotion he's under contract, you can. Dorsey technically wasn't under contract, which is why they had to interview T. Martin for the offensive coordinator job. But if you're just promoting somebody from within that's under contract for you, then I don't think you have to do interviews.
Okay, so let's swing it to CJ. And CJ, where do you stand with all of this? And what it means for the NFL, and what it means for minority coaches.
Yeah.
And coaching searches even. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I definitely view it as, for a long time in the league, black management and black coaches were not a very common thing. Now you're starting to see a little bit more of both, but not even to the point of where it adds up to like society, like to the point of, I don't know exactly what percentage of the United States is African American, but I'm sure that percentage is not the same percentage as black coaches in the NFL. And I think that is where obviously you would like to get to the point where it's total equality with everybody's chances. And you've always had these stigmas about African American coaches, African American quarterbacks. It's very similar where they're not cerebral enough, or they're not, and it's just another form of racism, in my opinion, and a way of making African Americans or minorities believe that they are not on the same level as white people. And so without getting too much into the race aspect, while it is a very important part of it, I just, in my opinion, I see no way that if you do not have some sort of repercussions, that there's any reason to have the rule in place whatsoever. So if teams can do what the Giants are being accused of doing to Flores without any repercussions, then to me, there's not much of a point in having the rule in the first place.
Do you have the rule up? Do you know if there's repercussions? I feel like a team got docked of a draft pick.
Okay.
For doing it.
Okay. But at a certain point, though, it's just being done to make an idea that we are trying to involve people, right, in the NFL. It's not being done because they're really making an effort. It's just being done so that we can placate and make people think that we're doing it. And that's what I worry about more, to me. And that's the bigger issue is, okay, well, you can't really change that. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of, if that's the mentality of the NFL, and I don't see any way you can force a team to do that. But I think that if you're going to have the rule, you need to have there needs to be repercussions, and that's just how I view it.
Yeah, I think so too. How can they fix it though? I mean, I guess, do you think that repercussions alone would fix it?
No, I know I made another comment earlier in the week where I had said repercussions, but also higher incentive for them to really want to hire minority coaches. You know what I mean? And if you can make it so it's worth it for the team, and say they're maybe on the fence about it, right? And they're like, oh, well, we don't know, and giving them a little bit extra for doing it would definitely go a long way in making them want to do it, I think. You know what I mean? Whether that be, I mean, I think you had said, if I'm mistaken, correct me, but I think you had said draft picks, and you had made another comment about another incentive that could
money.
But in my right. Okay, yeah. And in my mind, the money situation would be the better route for that, because to me, it's very ambiguous as far as what kind of draft pick to put on that. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to say what they would deserve,
Right.
And make it even along. Still, the line of the NFL is fairly even. You know what I mean? You don't want to give them so much, right?
Unless they just said, if you hire a minority coach, you get a 4th round pick. Period. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I hear you. my first thing for that would be where does that 4th round pick come from?
Well,
is it just an added NFL pick? Is it coming from a different team?
You could add a pick, right? Because they already add picks for players who leave, through free agency and they don't get made
Right,
up.
but you're saying guys that what do they call those? Compensatory, or is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Am I mistaken in that I thought compensatory picks came from the team that traded the player away?
Yeah, they're just added picks.
So they don't come from the team.
No.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Then technically that is what they would do. You know what I mean? Like in that scenario, then okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. I think you could do that and come up with something like if you hire a female, if you hire, a front office executive, I don't know. I don't think you can go with a female, but if you hire a front office executive, you get a 4th. If you hire a coach, you get a 5th. If you hire a assistant coach, you get a 6th. There's something like that.
What about a adjustment to your salary cap?
That's tricky.
It is, but I'm saying giving them a little bit more leeway, right? So like giving them either, if they're real close to the cap, giving them some more, or you know what I mean? Again, it's incentivized money, right? But I think of like if you just say give them money, who does the money go to, right? So it would have to go to the bettering the team, right? So then in that case, it's not going to go in their pockets. I mean, it could. I don't know.
I would say the money goes to the owners. That's
Okay.
where I think the money goes. You're at the end of the day, it's the owners making the hire. And that's where the money goes. And in theory, the money should go to improving the team. Right.
Okay. Yes.
So it comes out of the golden pot of the NFL. Right.
Okay. Yep.
And it would just go to team X
or facility or
right.
Cool.
Right. And maybe that's it. Maybe they have to
Yeah.
show how they spent it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Something like that.
And then you're definitely pushing these guys to make these decisions and want to actually really consider it, because if there's no repercussions for it, then what do they have any reason to really do it?
Yeah, that's the other side of it. Is it worth it to even have the rule in place anymore?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's not effective and it's not working, then I agree. But again, you're taking this stance. The NFL has taken this stance on racism, equality, all that stuff, right? So I don't think if you backtrack on that, like you're going against everything you stand for at this point. So if you say no, we're taking away the Rooney Rule, even though it's not effective, even though it doesn't work, I think on like the firestorm that would come from the media as a result of that and people in general, I just think it'd be foolish to do that.
So Noah, how do you think that the league is heading into a very dangerous zone with the Brian Flores piece, right? With potentially more text coming out from different or more communication coming out and more minority coaches or that kind of thing coming out with more stories, coming out with more information. Some of it may be Hugh Jackson like, and some of it will probably be real. So how do you think the NFL can handle that in the sense of PR?
Well, I mean, they're going to do what they always do. They'll say they're launching the full investigation. They'll do some deep dive if, those texts actually come out and Brian Flores actually does have the stuff that he says. I mean, I'm not saying that he doesn't. but he, that's still going to be a big issue for the NFL if it does come out that way. But I mean, they'll probably set up some committee and they'll do some investigation into it, and they'll find the Dolphins something and probably take away some draft picks, and that's what they'll do.
Do you think they'll force Stephen Ross to sell the team?
Depends.
My line is drawn there, to be honest.
It depends what the text show.
They forced it with other owners.
No, I know. I'm just saying I don't agree with that aspect of taking somebody's personal property away from him.
I mean, if his texts are like the guy who owned the Clippers before Ballmer, then yeah, sure. But
well, didn't they make the Carolina guy Jerry Richardson?
Well, he was also sexually harassing people.
Right.
Now, are we talking about him being fired for going to Flores and asking him to lose games? Is that what we're saying he should be fired for?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the Stephen Ross side, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
When it comes to the Giants,
that's a different aspect. We're not talking. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think the Giants and the Maras. I don't think the NFL would touch the Maras in the first place.
Okay.
But if it was a different team, I don't even think a different team should be forced to sell. But when it comes to if this really becomes issue
it depends
on
how deep it goes. I mean, if it was seriously like he was saying, you have to lose these games, I'll give you this money, you need to coach bad, you need to do this, then I mean, I think there's a case to be made, because there's a case to be made that he was tampering with the integrity of the NFL games. And how many times have we heard the NFL stand behind the integrity of their game as an excuse for something? Well, there's a hit on the shield. The NFL isn't going to like that. So there is a case to be made that the NFL might just be like, you tried to mess with this. I mean, if this could be Pete Rose-esque. I mean, think about it. An owner sitting there telling a coach, I will give you money to lose these games.
Yeah.
Right. Because
who knows that's not financially motivated. Like what I mean by that is he getting some sort of, is he putting money on the games? Is he doing, you know what I mean? Like who knows that's not the case.
I mean, think about if Miami got Joe Burrow, they're probably A, better off, and B, they probably have increased money right now.
Their revenue,
they would have higher revenue.
The sales of a Joe Burrow jersey versus a Tua jersey.
Well, yeah, but your Miami location and all that, like the market there is a lot bigger than at Cincy. You know what I mean? So regardless, they're making
time about these NFL owners and how all they want is just money.
Right.
I mean, Tua's not going to drive you in as much money after just getting his ass beat by Joe Burrow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but what I mean to that point is just I don't think
bigger.
Yeah, I don't think they're as worried about that, right? But I get the point. I understand where you're coming from, but yeah.
I just think they are always just about making money.
For sure. And that's a good point as to another incentive would be maybe a bigger percentage on TV stuff. You know what I mean? Like TV, whatever revenue. They get from, you know what I mean? Or something along those lines. But that just popped in my head.
You mean like dividing up the revenue in a better way?
Yeah, more in favor of the coaches more in favor of the teams that actually, did what the NFL wants them to do with the Rooney Rule.
So, obviously, the Rooney Rule started with Art Rooney, who was the owner of Pittsburgh, who has had Mike Tomlin in place for 15 years. What do you do with a team like Mike Tomlin, or Pittsburgh, and maybe they're just a one-off team off the top of my head, who has had a minority coach already in place? Do you say, way to go?
Yeah, it's a good point.
They get a pat on the back. Good job. You guys hired one.
Well, you've won championships, right? And and as far as I know, you haven't lost any, or haven't had a losing season. I'm sorry, is what I meant.
Yeah. Right.
So I think success outweighs that. the need for a reward, right? That's the reward. You get a guy like that, you hit, you're good. You know what I mean? Like,
that's fair. I guess that's fair.
yeah, I'm just thinking on the back end, if there's any way where we could say, okay, this guy failed, right? But we can recoup some of our loss, or we can.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. No way.
Okay.
Like you're saying, like if like a Rooney Rule hire failed.
Yes.
No.
Because what if Sean McDermott failed? And what do you consider? What do you consider her as a failure?
You're incentivizing firing.
That's true.
Well, in my mind, that would give them more of a like an okay to do it in the first place. Like if they felt like, hey, we could get something in return.
Yeah, but the Steelers haven't really had a reason to fire Tomlin.
Right.
Either.
Well, I guess if everything goes well, then you just say, well, that success is its own reward, right? But
I'm with that. If you hire a guy, like if somebody hires Eric Bieniemy or somebody hires Raheem Morris and they work out for you and you get a Super Bowl out of it, that's your reward.
No, I agree.
Like
I just think of those people that
owner,
don't get that is all I was thinking of.
Right. Oh, well, then you failed.
More incentives on the front end, I guess, would cover that better. Anyways,
you didn't do enough when you hired him. If Raheem Morris goes out there and he sucks,
it's terrible. Okay,
that's on you.
Right.
That's on you as the team. That's not on.
You didn't do your due diligence. You're saying?
Well, not even just that. I mean, maybe your GM sucks. You know, he didn't have the players around him. He didn't get to do what he wanted to do. Blah blah blah. It just didn't work. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
Well, what's your feeling on the Rooney Rule and like just in general? Like, do you feel that they should be able to tell teams how to, who to pick and stuff like that? You feel like that's not how they should do it?
I think you have to have that type of rule in place, but you can't incentivize firing for those people.
No, we're off that, right? So forget that.
No, I'm not saying firing. Sorry, I meant hiring. I don't think that you should or
So how do you get away from the idea that it's a token interview?
Right. So that's my question. Like, how do you? So then, if that's the case, and you feel that way, then how do we get more minorities to be hired in the first place?
I mean,
it's not an easy question, right? But I don't know.
No, it is a hard question. But I mean, when you're sitting here, I mean, well, first off, I think you're making it like trivial if you're gonna then say we're giving you a reward for the coach, or we're going to fine you when you don't. Because it's like you also can't do that because you don't know how those interviews go. Like, unless you're planning to have somebody from the NFL sit on every single interview and see how they go, because it's like, what if he truly doesn't fit? But what if Brian Flores truly didn't fit for the Giants? Like, take that all out. Take out what we know from Flores. Like, what if it just comes down to he didn't fit and the Giants really want to go with Dable? What do you say then? They have to go with Flores?
Well, no, I understand what you're saying, but you're making it now at this point, you're making it harder, right? I'm asking you is how do you make it easier?
Black ownership. You have to start putting minorities into places of ownership, and you have to start putting minorities in the NFL front office that aren't token positions that you just don't use for interviews. The assistant commissioner or whatever, the deputy commissioner should probably be a minority.
I hear you 100%, and I agree in the fact that if I'm an African American man going into a room full of 5 white men, I don't look like them, I don't sound like them, I don't talk like them. They're going to be less inclined to feel that we have a relationship, or that they're going to be like that we're close, than they would with a white, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
I completely agree with you. I mean, these people aren't racist. I don't think there is a problem, but I don't think that they're like that. Everybody in the NFL is a racist.
No, it's just the line that we've towed for such a long time that makes this what is acceptable in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like this is what the bar has been set. This is what, unfortunately, this is what success in the NFL has looked like. And I don't mean to say that in a bad way, but reality, in
It's
my
the
opinion.
same thing with Obama. Honestly.
Well, let's not get into politics.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't know where you're
it's-
going with
it's-
that, but I don't know if I can have your back on that, but yeah.
So, I don't remember what I was gonna say, but it was a really good point.
Ah,
I'm
sorry,
but
we talked long.
yeah.
I think what the NFL has to do is they have to actually have an outreach that helps the entire NFL understand diversity. Like, yeah, some of these teams understand diversity. Like, I think our team does. Like, you're looking at the coaching staff right now on your computer. Like that's a pretty diverse group. Like,
Yeah.
you look at KC, they have a pretty. I mean, Eric Benamy, come on, but there isn't. But I don't think that you can go through the process of giving teams incentives or penalizing teams because you're trivializing the issue. But I think you'll also have you'll have a shift in the NFL, and then that's where you have to do your outreach and everything like that. But if you're going to start targeting these teams and saying, you have to do this and you have to do this as a part of the rooting rule and stuff as that as like draft picks, people getting suspended, money, you're making the issue something that it shouldn't be, I think, in my opinion. I mean,
that's an interesting take, because one of the things that the minority candidates talk about, and that is that they don't get a fair shake. They don't get a long
I don't
enough,
think that they do, but I don't think the way you fix
amount of
that
time
is by incentives or penalties. That's my point.
Well, how do you get black ownership in? I mean, not every team goes for sale, but I mean, I guess you could target black ownership for Denver.
You have to start changing. You actually have to stop pretending like football isn't mainly targeted for white adults, and you have to start pretending that it should be targeted for all adults.
Well, aren't like 85% of the players in the NFL
yes,
black?
But I'm saying the way that it's targeted outside of that. Football is targeted to minorities as a sport. You have to target it as a business across the board. That's how you get black investors and people involved. You have to start having different voices in the NFL across the board as ownership of teams, within the front offices, within.
Well, can I rebut that a little bit in the sense of one, for the NFLPA, I can't remember the last time the head of the NFLPA hasn't been black.
The NFLPA doesn't help get head coaches fired.
Yeah, and to me, that's just another way of presenting it that we are trying to be equal, when it's really NFLPA compared to ownership has not very much control.
They could strike.
Yeah, but are they gonna?
They could.
When's the last time we saw an NFL strike? When Deion Sanders played both sports?
Yeah.
I'm
They did
just
like
saying.
did they do like a couple game lockout at one point? A couple years
in like
ago?
1984 or 86
okay.
or something.
Okay.
That's the last time I think there was a
2011.
lockout.
That was the last lockout. It was 132 days.
Right.
And it was, but that was a lockout, not a strike. So
Okay.
that came from the owners.
Last NFL
Okay.
strike. It says 2011. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a
No,
difference.
1987.
There was something.
Yeah, 1987. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when they had replacement players and they brought in blah 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 and all that kind of
15
stuff.
games.
Yeah.
Yep. 1987 was the last lockout. I mean, these guys make way too much money.
Honestly. This is such a complex issue that I mean, we could talk
covered in one segment.
Yeah.
Right. We could talk about this for the next 5
hours. days.
Well,
weeks.
no, I mean for the next 5 shows.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
And I
We
mean
wouldn't
things are
have
going to
any better
happen.
answers.
Things are going to happen every single week between now and next week, right? And that kind of thing. And it's breaking news again.
Harbaugh, it's about Harbaugh. It's because the Vikings didn't offer him a deal. So since they didn't offer him a deal, he's like, yeah, I'll come back.
Oh, well, so that could change then, right? I would assume.
So they could just call him and offer him a deal?
Yeah, is mine made up?
Okay. I mean, they're zeroing in on O'Connell. Is that what it said?
From 49ers?
Yeah. No, from the Rams. The Rams offensive coordinator, O'Connell.
Oh, okay. Who's white?
Kevin O'Connell to be their next head coach. Yep. It can't be official until after the Super Bowl, but it's
because they
expected.
have to interview a black candidate.
Well, the Rams are also in the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah. Which screws over Eric Bieniemy every year. So so there's like 6, I think there's like 6 head coaching spots still available. I think 5 or 6.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4?
Vikings, Saints, Dolphins, Jaguars. Raiders hired McDaniel.
Okay.
So 4.
Okay, so out of the 4, how many will be a minority? Do you think the NFL is going to push it that way?
I think 1 will be probably the Saints because it's probably going to be Dennis Allen. I would be extremely surprised if they did not make him head coach. Because, I mean, he was in there every... Wait, is Dennis Allen white, though?
Yeah, No, he's black.
No, he's white. Oh, my goodness.
I was thinking of the Raiders, Dennis Allen. Okay. So there's Bieniemy and Leftwich, who are the...
Who are favorites for the Dolphins? Well, Leftwich is favorites for the Jags job. The Dolphins interviewed Leftwich. Has Bieniemy even gotten an interview?
I haven't heard that Bieniemy's interviewed anywhere. And Raheem Morris is another one, right? But there aren't a ton of names out there.
Yeah.
Who are minorities. And I've kept wanting to say this, but Ron Rivera came out and said Brian Flores should get a head coaching job in the NFL while he's working to undermine the NFL.
Because I think there's a difference between, I think you have different groups when it comes to the NFL. Like, we all like to view the NFL as one long running business, one long running process, but there really is the commissioner and his people, the head coaches, the front offices, the owners, and the players. And I think you can group the head coaches and the players to a certain extent, but I really think that each individual group is its own individual group. Coaches will look out for coaches, players will look out for players, front office guys will look out for front office guys, and of course the shield will always back up the shield, which is what we saw today across the board from Denver, who said these claims are false. Dolphins and Stephen Ross said these claims are false. NFL said this is ridiculous, basically, and the claims are false. And there are ways to still deny the claims while saying we want to work with Flores, but every single one of those statements turned Flores into a villain.
I think you're never going to see Flores in the NFL again. I think he's going to end up in college and just stay there.
I think he's a martyr at this point.
Yep.
You don't come out and expose trade secrets and think you're going to get away with it.
Yeah.
There's no way this is not the first time this has happened. Think about how, like, just think about how many bad coaches we've seen and how many bad seasons we've seen.
As a Bills fan?
Like, not even just that, but across the board from like new head coaches who just couldn't get it together. Do you think I bet there's more instances of this, or of at least ownership being like, we should lose more. Try to lose more.
Well, I mean, let me just ask this: who deserved the head coaching job more, Dable or Frazier?
Dable.
Yeah, Dable.
Okay.
But Frazier's also been out there and been a head coach and tried and failed.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think that if you're trying to say, why did you ask that? Let me go with that before I make an assumption.
Because they were both very successful at their jobs this year.
Yeah.
Right? They both coached on the same team.
Okay, but who deserves more of a head coaching job between Bieniemy and Dable?
It's even.
Okay.
So if it's even, then do you go with the minority coach?
I mean, that comes back to what I said. I mean, again, you can't penalize these teams for saying, I think this guy is a better fit. I mean, unfortunately, I don't think if you're a minority in the NFL, you want these teams to be penalized. Or
So what do they
incentive.
want?
I don't know. I just think they want to be hired. I think they want to be given. I mean, if those interviews happen the way Flores happened, then yeah, that's a problem.
But we've also heard about it happening with white coaches walking in and getting a 1-hour interview and then getting kicked out.
Then it's an executive problem.
Right. And that's why Elway doesn't run the Broncos anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
like
it's
I said,
it's a long conversation.
This is a very complex conversation and something we could do for the next 5 shows probably. And there will be a lot of developments over the next week, and we will talk to everyone about it next week because I'm sure there will be plenty more to talk about.
Yeah.
Including the new head coaches.
Hopefully.
But we'll dive into the Super Bowl a little bit more next week. And actually talk about the Super Bowl and the teams that are playing and
come with some betting locks, CJ.
Yeah. You got to come in with some betting locks, some parlays, maybe some
anytime.
Yeah, I got some props.
Scores.
I got
some props. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you.
Give us
I
some
couldn't find
good
props. Anyway.
The teams are too
Noah,
good
CJ, you want to take us home?
You got anything?
No.
Do
I got anything? No, I think we covered a lot. So,
yeah,
Noah, it's all you.
All right. Well, if you made it to the end, we appreciate you for watching. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can dislike it too. Just interact with us. We're on Twitter at GameDay716. As always, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and wear a mask.
Stay sunny, Buffalo.
Okay, go Bills, go Sabres.
Go Bills, go Sabres.